Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Prep Life Podcast. This is your founder and CEO of Glam Girl Bikini, Amy Anger. And today I'm joined by two fabulous people. First of all, my fabulous co-host, Leemarie Hostetter. Hey, Lee.
Hello.
And you can see my beautiful dear friend, Wyre,
Hi.
aka K-Rae.
Hey.
So K-Rae is our special guest today because she is an industrial psychologist. Is that the correct uh,
I
title?
studied industrial and organizational psychology. I have a
Yeah.
master's in it. I would say I have an understanding and a mastery of it, but I'm not a psychologist. That
Oh,
would
okay.
require a PhD, but yes.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
Okay, so I misspoke on that
That's
one.
okay. That's
But
okay.
she's jack of trades of all trades. So if you've been around Glam Girl, you know that she's designed suits for Sassy Classy. She had her own suit business. She's done hair. She's done makeup. She's an excellent poser, professional salsa dancer. She's a woman of many talents, and
Um,
she designed my website. So should we go
Part of
on?
it, part of it.
You know, you did all of it, I think. But today we have you on because we wanted to talk about the big five, the personality types. And we've talked about in the past the Enneagram, which I do love that. But I know, like, from recent things that I've learned, and I'm sure you can tell us a lot more about it, is the big five is the most researched personality test and scientific backed
Mhm.
one, superior to DISC or what's the other one?
Myers-Briggs.
Myers-Briggs. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So can you just kick this episode off by just kind of giving us like a little bit of a background on your work with the Big Five? And we will get into how your personality basically knowing what you're like. And then also for Lee Marie and I, it's nice for us to know what our clients are like because when we tailor a client-centered program, it's really important to know like each person is different, their personality is different, so they're going to be motivated by different things in the fitness industry. So we'll get more into that, but let's just first start with just kind of like how the Big Five came about or kind of the
Yeah.
background on it, K-Ray, if you don't
Yeah,
mind.
so the big five is another term for it is called the five factor model, or you may have heard it called OCEAN, which stands for openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. And the way it was developed is it basically from a lexicon of language. So researchers looked at words that described across all languages, words that described behaviors and sort of the natural tendencies of humans. And they were able to basically boil it down into these five groups.
Okay.
And there's a sixth one that's now kind of becoming popular, which is honesty, and which is we can talk about, which is I think is pretty cool. But so what we find with the five factor is that there is a lot of validity to it. So whenever we do whether it's assessments, and then we're able to take that assessment and apply it to other areas, whether it's performance or performance in the workplace or performance at whatever you're doing, learning new tasks, we're able to sort of lay that five factor model on top of that and predict behavior. And that shows up consistently. The way it's different from the Myers-Briggs or the Enneagram is that there is a lot of data to support it. So we are able to use it to predict behavior. What I like about the Enneagram and Myers-Briggs is that while there's not a lot of data to sort of to back it, there is more with the Myers-Briggs. But with the Enneagram, even though there isn't a lot of data to back it, it's kind of interesting to read about sort of this maybe facet of your personality, and you can go through and kind of connect with certain things. And so maybe it's not giving you a total predictive model of your behavior, but it can create meaning for you, right? Like you can see things in it and say, I really identify with that aspect, or I really don't identify with that. And so those things, because they create meaning, can often be sort of helpful, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, that kind of gives you an overview.
Great. So we are going to link in the show notes the quiz. Do we want to start with what we all are and then we can kind of give the definitions or
Wow.
okay. So let's start. Lee Marie, did you I know you guys were talking offline before I hopped on here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
I don't
what
know
were
what
your rankings of your
I'll
score?
just do my rankings. I don't know what I am in it, but it gave me all of mine were pretty close, I thought. But so extroversion, I ranked 23 and the range is 5 to 40. So 23 with extroversion, agreeableness, 33, conscientiousness, 35, emotional stability, 30, and openness, 29. So I didn't get like a lot of extremes. I kind of was overall a little bit all the same.
Yeah.
So your highest were conscientiousness and agreeableness, if I heard that right?
Mhm.
Okay. So for me, my highest is openness. It's 38. Conscientiousness is 37. And extroversion's 30. Agreeableness 23. And emotional stability or neuroticism is 19. So I'm the lowest on that one. How about you, K-Ray? Do you know yours offhand or no?
I have high agreeableness and openness to experience.
Okay.
I was actually talking with Leemarie before you hopped on, Amy,
Uh-huh.
about extroversion and sort of performing as an extrovert while you are an introvert, and how sometimes when you take
Yes.
this test, you kind of get a mixed response on that, or you might actually get a number that you go, "Well, I don't really know if I agree with that." And that is because often when you're working with people, you can develop those traits or those behaviors that help you perform as a better coach or perform better at your work. And people that are high in extroversion tend to have better results in the workplace or whatever type of performance they're doing. Um, so introverts can often mimic as extroverts, and sometimes we will take the test from the standpoint of like, what is my behavior versus what is the sort of gut reaction or gut response to the question that's being presented. And so so for anybody that takes the test moving forward, when you take it, you want to respond with a gut reaction and what your internal sort of instinct is in am I breaking up? I'm here. Okay.
Yes. There we
Okay.
go.
What your instinct is when it comes to sort of answering those extroversion questions, and sort of keep out of mind how it is that you tend to behave or need to behave. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I go by the Vanessa Van Edwards, the ambivert, because I feel like I'm an introvert at heart in
Yes.
terms of like I need to recharge, I need to be by myself and kind of get my energy back. And I tend to like if I'm around people too long, but I can kind of like wear that skin and like be high energy when I need to. But yeah, like at the core. So I think that's why mine was like a middle range on that one. It wasn't super high,
Yeah.
but
Really
yeah.
interesting. I've always heard that like introversion, extroversion has to do with how you recharge like energy. And it's just
Yes.
interesting thinking about like I do group fitness coaching, but then I do glam girl coaching. And just as you were talking about behaviors versus your gut instincts, I was just thinking about when I teach a group fitness class or like 2, 3 classes in a row. I really enjoy it, but I leave absolutely exhausted and sometimes need to take a nap.
Yeah.
When I do my online check-ins, I feel like I leave, like I get done with them so hyped up and full of energy.
Hmm.
Like it's totally, and I enjoy both of them, but like the results afterwards, one of them gives me so much energy and fires me up. And it's like, okay, now I want to go to the gym because I have so much energy because I just did all my check-ins and everyone's doing great kind of thing.
Yeah.
Versus
Yeah.
like the group fitness where I'm like on a stage performing for everyone basically
Right.
like you're an
Right.
instructor and then I'm just exhausted afterwards.
Yeah, and that
Yeah.
kind of sort of touches on um, what sort of activities are you engaging in during your week, whether it's within your job, um, and is it fitting or is it aligning with your sort of natural inclinations? And so I feel the same way. I charge. I'm an introvert, and so I recharge. I love my alone time, but yeah, if I'm having to perform a lot, if I'm having to like present or talk with a lot of people or whatever, it is draining. And so you do have to kind of take into consideration like how many elements of my week are doing this sort of behavior that's not like natural to me, and how how much of an expenditure is that on my psyche, you know? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, well, let's dive into kind of how this can optimize your workout routine, your diet, your overall mindset. So prep lifers can kind of look at the big five and go with that. Since my highest was openness, do you mind if I kind of kick this off with the
Yeah,
openness? And
go for it.
um, so with openness, people enjoy a variety of different exercises, new challenges, goals, unconventional fitness methods. So K-Rae knows that when we went to Phoenix, like we did a hike on, Camelback Mountain, but I also liked going to the gym and just doing various things, trying different things. So, not necessarily, oh, and we also went dancing too. That was another example too of just like being active and doing different experiences,
Mhm.
experiencing new things. So for me, this one isn't a struggle that I have, but some people that have high openness may struggle with consistency when it comes to a routine, just because the structure kind of like makes them a little crazy. And so they need to find that balance between novelty and a routine. Because I'm almost the exact same score in conscientiousness. I basically, I was like 38 and 37. So I am highly disciplined, an individual. And this was high for you, Leemarie, right? Conscientiousness. Do you want to
Mhm.
take that one in terms of like what people in the fitness industry can thrive with that one as well?
Yeah, so I actually hearing you describe openness, I think I probably scored wrong on that. I think I'm very low on that. I love routine. I love to know what I'm doing. I thrive on structure, on discipline, and on planning. I plan out my week, my day,
Mhm.
and my hour. Like
Yes.
in my head. And then kind of back in my head, I have month by month for my whole year. So I love that. And I love bodybuilding prep because it just flows right into that and you have that structure. But so you're highly conscientious, you thrive on structure, you're very likely to stick to workout schedules, track your progress, check in on time, follow nutrition plans. This is really good for bodybuilding. But, and I run into this with myself and lots of clients, you might struggle with perfectionism or frustration if things don't go as planned, which often happens in bodybuilding, in prep, because your body is not always going to behave perfectly, even when you follow the plan perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's like the spectrum of the part where I don't land on because I'm not like super perfectionistic, but I do love a routine and especially in prep, like just kind of getting into the grind of it.
Yeah.
But the improvement season, I like to do different things.
Mhm.
So,
Nope, I don't. I'm
um,
like terrified. If you're like, because you do this sometimes, Amy, you're like, we're gonna do this, and it's new, and I'm like, oh no, oh no, oh no. But then I go and I have a blast, and it's great. But like, I'm definitely more like, okay, we did this. Let's just do that again. It's safe.
yeah. So, K-Rae, do you want to chime in on either one of those, like where you could give
Um,
us some advice in the fitness
yeah,
realm of how we can thrive with if
sure.
we're high in either one of those?
Yeah. Well, we'll kind of go back to openness to experience. So kind of like what both of you touched on, there is a lot of uh, creativity, curiosity. There's curiosity to try new things and to sort of learn about the world and learn about ourselves. And so people that are high in openness tend to be better at symbolic thinking. They're creative, like I just mentioned. They can kind of think outside of restrictions, and they actually can be better at intuitive eating because they are able to sort of listen to their bodies, and they don't have to follow sort of a set schedule with that, or they don't have to follow necessarily a specific sort of, it doesn't have to be rigid, and they're able to
Yeah.
kind of listen to their body. So people high in openness to experience, that's kind of typically what we see. On the low side, we have people that are nervous about change. They often believe that things won't change, that they won't change. They tend to be less coachable, less adaptable. They can have frustrations if they don't see their progress follow an expected path. And so the thing about these personality measures is that these are pretty stable across somebody's life. and they are predictive of life outcomes. So when you have somebody that is low in openness to experience, you can encourage them to ask questions, to think outside the box, to explore different topics. You can, tell them to, one of the things that actually breaks sort of that low openness score is to start to engage in artistic activities that sort of open the mind and get them out of linear thinking.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
and then with conscientiousness, again, like what you guys said, organized, reliable, detail oriented, good at planning, very disciplined, very goal oriented. So this would be kind of that perfect client, so to speak, that is high in conscientiousness. And then on the low side, there's sort of the impulsivity, the less structured, maybe a little more spontaneous, may procrastinate. They may kind of wing it when it comes to their diet and not follow through on getting their, their info back to you each week. So
Yeah.
again, a lot of these, if you are low on some of these measures, you can change your behavior. You're not going to change sort of that gut reaction to be low in conscientiousness, but you can change how you respond to certain situations. So
Yeah, what came to mind was that the openness would do really well with like macros and flexible dieting, and they do well with cheat meals, or like free meals versus like the conscientious. I could see them being more like meal plan oriented, and they would have a hard time doing like a restaurant meal because they have to be like completely perfect and in control. I could also see them, wanting to have like guidelines when it came to like a refeed and not having like the freedom. Does that sound true, Lee
yep.
Marie?
Okay, so I'm thinking of post show two preps
Yes.
ago when you had to tell me, like, I need you to take a refeed and not cottage cheese and turkey.
Yeah.
Go get a burger.
And fries.
Hearing you talk about intuitive eating is really interesting too, because my last off season with you, Amy, I remember asking you, like, I think I need a mental break. Can I do some intuitive eating for a month and before we go into prep? And you were like, I think that's great. I think you're burned out a little bit. Let's just take a month off of tracking. But looking back, I was not intuitive eating at all. I was simply following the food that I did, just taking a break from tracking. Like, I've
Yeah.
never really done intuitive anything. I just plan and don't write it down. So that's really interesting.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into extroversion. So, extroversions often find motivation in a social setting. And so, they're going to be your group fitness classes where they thrive in a setting. Even if it's just, I have a couple of clients that do tandem training with me, or they do personal training, just two of them that I kind of found like a good fit. And that really motivates them. I think just like a workout partner. This was my third highest, and so I always have a workout buddy. I feel like, or at least I like to have a workout buddy with me. And then competitive sports as well are something that a lot of extroverts tend to thrive in. And they're going to have just like a little bit more enthusiasm, higher levels of energy. And they may struggle with like a solo workout, anything quiet, meditative, like yoga. I have a hard time with like sitting still for too long. Like yoga kind of, unless it's like something really, really good, it's hard for me to stay,
Yeah.
stay like still.
Yeah.
Would you say in the bodybuilding world, Amy, would you say the clients that score high in extroversion would do well on stage and thrive?
Yeah, like the posing. Yes, for
Yeah.
sure. I think so.
Mhm.
What about you, K-Rae? Is there anything about extroverts that could be related to the prep life, or
Um,
something that they may need to look at pitfalls that where they'd fall short, or
yeah.
they can excel?
Well, in terms of like from the IO industrial and organizational psychology standpoint, we are able to use conscientiousness and extroversion measures to predict behavior. They are the strongest predictors of behavior and the strongest predictors of performance. So extroversion, people that are highly extroverted tend to be great in social interactions. So, in terms of like training, I would think about, how can you as an extrovert make your training more social? How can you do it with, maybe work out with more people, or maybe you meal prep together or whatever. So you want to look at opportunities to create that sort of social experience. And people though that are low on extroversion tend to be, and I'm thinking this kind of on my feed in terms of training, but they are less willing to share sort of their daily experience as a client. So they're less willing to kind of share those things with their coach. They may sort of guard that information, maybe not give the whole picture of what their diet is like or what their training is like or how things are going. And that's just because, that's not a character flaw. It's just that they tend to process things a little more internally, and they will put forth what they think is important for whatever conversation or goal that they're having. But yeah, so I would think that would maybe get in the way of things if you are low in extroversion.
Yeah.
So
So like group posing sessions would be great,
yes.
or any sort of workshops where you
Yes.
can just get energy from other people. Those would
Yep.
be great
I would
ideas.
say even like finding a gym, like if you're in Kansas City, I know Beastified Gym, shout out, is like this, but wherever you are in your city, find a gym where there are bodybuilders around, because you're probably going to have your own program and it won't really work to do a fitness class. But if you can like make friends with people at your gym, if they have similar goals, if they're doing kind of the same lifts, hey, can I spot you? Can you spot me? How's your prep going? That kind of thing. I think that could really help too.
Yeah. So was your highest agreeableness,
Yeah.
Leemarie? Okay. Do you want to take that one on the high and low spectrum, and then we'll have K-Rae chime in on some other things with that? Because that was high for you as well, right?
Yes.
K-Rae? Okay.
So, highly agreeable people enjoy collaboration and may thrive in team sports or supportive fitness communities. I love doing team workouts and team competitions with my fitness partners. They're often encouraging and make great workout partners. Hi, totally me. And then can struggle with setting boundaries, leading to overcommitting or prioritizing others over their own goals. And this is where prep has really helped me, because it makes me set boundaries, and it's such a good cop out. I always kind of sort of was a little envious of those girls that were married and would always be like, well, I have to check with my husband about something. And I never had that excuse, and I would always commit to whatever and anytime, and how can I help you, and let's plan our next whatever. Overcommit. But prep kind of became my, oh no, I have
Your
to.
husband.
Yeah, exactly. Married to my prep. But like, no, I have to get this done. I have to get this done. Oh, I'm in prep. Maybe after prep. We can do it after prep. Became like a really good excuse for me, but I definitely struggle with setting boundaries.
Okay.
Admitting.
Yeah, K-Rae, anything to add on that as you're
Um,
a high agreeable?
uh,
Because
yeah.
she used to bodybuild, so when you were
Yeah.
in prep, like what were some ways that you
Um, I really wanted to follow what my coach was giving me. So I wanted to sort of be in agreement with that. And typically people that are high in agreeableness are, high in compassion. They're trustworthy. There's a lot of altruism. They try to create sort of this harmony within their lives. And so anything that for me, like that kind of means like maybe not sort of addressing the elephant in the room. Sometimes I'm just a peacekeeper, and I'm not good about checking in with myself and figuring out what my needs are. And so people that are high in agreeableness tend to have that happen, where they sort of put themselves on the back burner and take consideration. Um, they take into consideration other people's needs before theirs. Um, and so, if you're on the lower side, of agreeableness, you tend to be really competitive. So some of that can be
Hi.
helpful there, right?
I'm low on that one.
Yeah. Tend to be suspicious or skeptical. So you may have a client, or you may be a client that is suspicious or skeptical of the plan that your coach is giving you. And so, you can sort of maybe consider what your how you're quickly responding to that, and is it beneficial to you, or is it actually harming you? Um, and then they are focused on focused on their personal goals. They're not really concerned about the needs of others. They're kind of uncooperative. So again, if you have these sort of tendencies that are lower on those scales, you can change your behavior. You can change your responses. And uh, focus more on sort of the positive aspects of that. Focus less on uh, trying to meet these personal needs, and trying to consider more of the grander scale of things. So
Whenever I have clients that have this, which in the Enneagram it's a 2, so I always identify them as like the helper or
Mhm.
a 9, the peacekeeper. Uh, they don't do well with conflict, so you have to be really careful about like the energy you're giving. But also, I feel like if if I tell them that, by doing this, you're going to fill your cup to help other people, then they can kind of buy into that. So like if they're feeling like mommy guilt, or like they're spending too much money on this sport, or they're spending too much time on it, then I have to say, like, you know what? If you take this little amount of time for yourself to take care of your health and your well-being, then you're going to be 10 times better of a mom, because you're going to have, you're going to feel good energy, you're going to be healthy. And then they kind of are like, oh, okay, like that's okay then to do that, because then I can help people better
mm,
than I was before. But I don't know if, I mean, is that a good
yeah,
example of that
no,
for
I think you
somebody?
nailed it. Yeah.
Think that's a great example of knowing all of these personalities and how to coach them. Because
Yes.
it's really, I mean, in prep, it's the same package, like but it's how you deliver it to
Yeah.
your audience, to your client, that allows them to, you know, coach.
Stay motivated and, yeah, and feel like they're doing things, because yeah, I have so many people that they will overcommit to doing stuff for other people, and I'm like, okay, you're gonna get burnt out, and
Mhm.
you're not gonna be able to help them as well as you normally would if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not getting enough sleep, like you're not prepping your food, you're having bad energy because you're kind of like just doing nutrition willy-nilly. And
Mhm.
so yeah, I think it just takes like some recentering, and I do think they do well with like body doubles, like people that
Mhm.
will hold them accountable, just because they want to please those people, right? I mean, so like a coach is a good fit for them, or would you agree? Like,
Yeah. Yes. I think having a coach, having somebody to hold them accountable is good. But you also want to consider that sometimes you want to consider what's driving their behavior. So are they trying to make the coach happy, or
happy. Yeah.
are they doing it for themselves? Are they doing it for their own health? And so yeah, I think it's good to kind of consider what is the driving factor for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. The last one. I feel like this was one that you both scored higher on. No,
No,
none of us did,
low,
right?
low.
Neuroticism, none of us did,
Yeah.
right? Did you, K-Rae? I can't remember.
Well, so neuroticism, it's another word for it is emotional stability. And so you have to kind of
Uh-huh.
look at the test and see, are you scoring high on emotional stability or high on neuroticism, which is on the other side of things. So I would need to look at the measure there. But if
Okay.
you are high in neuroticism, you are going to have more of that, like the anxiety, can tend to be very self-critical, have difficulty bouncing back from setbacks. And then if you're low, so you have like sort of that high or the sort of stable emotionality, you're gonna be more calm, confident, self-assured. You're less likely to sort of interpret negative experiences as negative experiences. Am I breaking up?
We can hear you, but it's weird because your body's like, if they're watching on YouTube, your body's like going like weird and slow-mo.
Sorry.
It's like the Matrix.
So yeah,
But
that's
we heard everything.
okay. Good. Good.
Yeah, so these people, basically mindfulness techniques would be good for them, flexible goal setting, self-compassion. Those can all help them with managing that. because they can get very down on themselves. And so what I've noticed with my clients that have high neuroticism, I have to be really careful about the expectations that we set when we say like we're going to win first place or something like that. We have to know that for anyone, I don't think that's a good goal to have because you're not involved in the process, like in focusing on the process, you're more outcome based, which is never good for anyone. But like, especially with the high neuroticism, I feel like if they have an unrealistic expectation set or something like that, then it just really it gives them a hard time to like really control their emotions when the outcome doesn't go the way that it's planned, and they get pretty upset and mad and like take judges' feedback like really like to heart. And I think it's important to like before the show even starts with these clients is what I've done is, I try to like show them exactly how far they've come in their journey and how they did like the last show and comparing them to themselves and how they've already won or like, their kids are so proud of their mom because she's a bodybuilder and like you're a role model to these other mothers and like whatever it is. Um, but I try to put the center on that just because I feel like that's where my clients that have high neuroticism don't, if things don't go well, it's a nightmare. And especially if we haven't set the stage like before the actual show has started and, like really talked about it the week before. But what are your ladies' thoughts? What do you all think?
And I just, as you were talking through this, I was thinking about even just how with plans, people that are high in neuroticism tend to have issues with mood swings and irritability, sadness,
Hmm.
and how those factors can sort of drive performance, whether it's in the gym, maybe it's skipping a workout, or even just how that emotional instability can drive cravings, and maybe stepping outside of what are the guidelines of a meal plan,
Hmm.
um, and and so they do have difficulty regulating emotions. And so I think,
Yeah.
if somebody is high in neuroticism, consider what sort of mental health things you need to do to give yourself sort of a better, safer place. Whether
Yeah.
it's stress reduction or even just maybe talking with your doctor about, anxiety medication or depression, medication for depression like SSRIs. So um,
Yeah, that's actually a really good point because I have noticed that they'll be the ones that will try to self-soothe by binge eating. And they're very like up and down. They'll stay strict on their diet and then they'll kind of like blow up post-show or whatever. And they just have a hard time managing their stress and especially when it comes to food. So just finding, like you said, other techniques to reduce stress or like keep their mind like they're accomplishing something like a puzzle or like a Sudoku or something
yeah,
like to keep their hands busy or something to accomplish, or strategies, coping strategies to kind of get through
yeah,
the mental part of like the food, um, focus and things
yeah.
like that. But
Yeah, we were talking about that. I think I had a conversation with you about this last week or whatever, but about active stress management versus
yeah,
passive stress management. And
yes.
a lot of times we do see with high neuroticism that people like to come home and veg out and just get in front of the TV and just use that as a stress reduction tool.
Hmm.
And that is what we would call passive stress management. And typically, when you do that, you can kind of put your inner place where you maybe start thinking about food, or you're looking to sort of cure boredom with food. And
Hmm.
so versus the active stress management, which is art, doing art, working with your hands, whether it's, creating something or, I don't know,
Going out for a
fixing,
walk in
yeah,
nature or
yeah,
taking a
doing,
hot bath or with
yes,
Epsom salts or getting a massage or yeah.
yes, yes, absolutely. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Good. Okay. So, as far as that goes, we've kind of gone over the five, how they relate to fitness. Do you want to go any further with this? Are there any other additional things that you ladies want to add?
I think your takeaways and tips at the bottom of your notes were really good. I think we should just
Okay. Yeah, let's go for it.
so this is kind of like for geared to I mean, coaches could use it too, but if you are a bodybuilder, you have a coach and you kind of figured out or you took the test, maybe, we'll put it in, link it in the show notes, but these are ways that you can grow and work on your weaknesses. And so the first tip is to identify your dominant personality traits and then tailor your fitness routine accordingly, or maybe even communicate to your coach. They can tailor it, or coaches tailor your athletes' routines according to their personality.
Yeah. So our clients that are listening, take this test, go to the show notes, take the test, and then report to your coach what you are, because we can really do a client-centered approach when we kind of know your personality. Some of this is intuitive when you have a little bit higher like EQ, you can kind of pick up on some of these things, but it's always really advantageous for us to know straight up, what are your personalities? Because there might be some people that are actually introverted that look like an extrovert, like yourself, Leemarie. So other things to keep in mind is use strengths to your advantage. So if you love structure, create a detailed workout plan, use spreadsheets if you are into that stuff, and make a cool calendar or whatever it is, but use those strengths to your advantage and think of them as like superpowers rather than kind of like, oh, these are my weaknesses. Like really like look at that as like a strength always, and how you can better yourself with it.
And then be aware of challenges. If you struggle with consistency, find an accountability partner, or make a check sheet that you have to send to your coach, or something that makes it like a daily thing. Some good tips there.
Yeah, and then fitness, just to pull it all together. Fitness is just not a one size fits all. We are the unicorn prep. Everybody is unique, and just knowing yourself helps you craft the sustainable and enjoyable fitness journey. And hopefully, you have a coach too that's on board with making your plan customized and to fit your personality. So once you know what you are, I think you and your coach, whoever you're coached by, it's going to be, something that can help everybody in designing the structure, because there's more than one way to get to a goal, and there's more than one way to get to a deficit. And so it's all about that creativity of what you can plan to make you set up for the most success. So, with that, any other thoughts to add before we hop off?
No.
Thank you so much for coming on, K-Rae. I appreciate you.
Hey.
And if you would like coaching from Leemarie or myself, you can go to glamgirlbikini.com and hit the Get Started button to apply for coaching. And if you like this episode, please feel free to share it on social media. You can find us at Prep Life Podcast or at Glam Girl Bikini, and you can tag us on your story. We would love that. K-Rae, can you let them know if they wanted to tag you and say thank you, what your handle is for Instagram?
Yeah, for Instagram, it's K-Rae Wyre. So it's KRAEWYRE. And that's
Nice.
it.
Yes, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate your time, and thanks for listening, guys.